Hello, welcome everyone. Hi, it's good to see some familiar faces and a couple new ones too. Feel free to rename yourself with your location, where you are, and maybe one word about how you're feeling right at the moment. Yes, my friends, it's really good to see all of you. And as you do that, I'm gonna go ahead and get the recording started, okay? Yeah, big purple heart right back to you. Ooh, yeah, feeling a bit stiff. I think that's an indication that maybe we should do a little bit of stretching in these first few minutes. Get the blood moving a little bit. Yeah. I always feel stiff after sitting at the computer for a bunch of hours. So yeah, I'm liking the swaying and the shaking and the just general flow that I'm seeing on screens here. Oh, I'm glad you're enjoying the sessions today. I think the next few are going to be pretty good too. All right, I'm going to go ahead and start the recording, but I'm really loving seeing all of you. I'm especially some of the artwork that I see in the background, and so there's some people outside with a mug of tea and a trees and a sky. Like that makes me so happy. That means you've been listening to me and resourcing yourself in between these sessions, which is awesome. All righty, here we go. Hello, hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the fourth day of our talk series on trauma's everyday impact. This session's presenter is Mark Walsh, and he will be speaking about trauma and leadership. My name is Shanti, and I'm here to serve up some hospitality and tech. So if you have any support needs with using Zoom, don't hesitate to reach out to me via private message. Just a few housekeeping items before we get started. I'm going to throw some links into the chat for y'all here. First of all, a very special thanks to those who have the All Access Pass and are here live, because you are all contributing to our sustainability so that we can keep putting out more resources like this for your education, and because you're giving us the joy of having humans to interact with. Believe me, that is the number one reason why I show up to this day in and day out. It gives me so much joy. So please turn on your cameras if possible, no matter what you're doing, as it provides useful feedback for presenters. And please throw your comments into the chat. We take all of your insights, and yeah, we love hearing from you. Second, if you're watching a replay, you can purchase an all-access pass to get into the live Zoom room and see unlimited sessions. We also have Q&As for those with the all-access pass, and those occur at 12 p.m. and 6 p.m. UK time. For those in the Western Hemisphere, that's 7 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And they're done by Roger Mills, a therapist who specializes in PTSD, and Patricia Aguirre, our Embodiment Unlimited therapist. Who here has gone to one of those Q&As? Raise your hand for me if you have. Yeah, I want to hear about how I haven't been able to attend myself, so I'd love to hear about how those went for you. And if you had any interesting questions to answer, definitely throw it into the chat for me. Please share information on this week's summit with anyone you love or care about, who you think may want to uncover the subtle ways in which trauma can show up in their lives. As you have noticed, after the live sessions finish, an email with the replay link is sent out. So yes, please let anyone who you think could benefit know. And I'll throw that link into the chat again for those who need it, so that they can register. And then for those who have experienced benefits from this week's summit and are thinking, oh, I want more, and are interested to learn how you can go deeper into the topics that we have covered, we offer courses that may fit your needs. And there's different packages, whether you're an ordinary person like me, who just wants to make some changes to their lives and wants to apply some of these teachings to your day-to-day routine, or whether you're a coach or a facilitator or a therapist who wants to figure out how you might be able to take some of this stuff and apply it with the work that you do with your clients. And Embodiment Unlimited has intentionally made these resources cheaper than their market value because we want to make this as affordable and accessible for as wide an audience as feasible. And as many of you know, toward the end of the session, when I wrap things up, I'll give you a little bit of a tour of the site. At the end of today, actually, I'll show you a little trailer video so that you can learn a little bit more about the courses as well. But again, if you can't wait and you want to take a look now, you're welcome to take a look at the link that I put into the chat. And third and most important, we really hammer this in because this is just such a key part of what we do here, and that's doing a self check-in for your own safety. And this is a really great time to do that. So look into yourself and think about the question, are you resourced right now? And if you notice that you're not feeling well enough to do something that involves a lot of coordination, like driving a car, then it's an indicator that maybe this is not the right time to watch, and a wiser choice for you maybe to go do an act of self-care instead. You can do whatever feels good for you right now. I just came back from walking a dog to the park. It was so much fun. And do something that you feel will be kind to yourself. And another question to ask yourself is, are you better served by one-to-one therapy? So this talk series is for education. It's not for therapy, and it's not designed for people who are currently going through the worst of their trauma. Many of our teachers, including Mark Walsh and myself, have been there, so no judgment at all. But you want to be robust for these sessions. So definitely exercise some prudence on whether this is the right time in your journey for engaging with an in-depth discussion about trauma without the guidance of a clinical professional. And no matter where you are and who you are and how things are going with trauma for you right now, definitely don't binge. There's no need for that. Replays have been sent out, and I'll put the link for those who have the All Access Pass into the chat. Be judicial with it. Again, it's just for those who have purchased the pass, so it's the honor code here. And if you tense up, get agitated, or space out at any time, that's a signal to breathe and make a shift. We had a couple people coming in today who kind of mentioned, hey, we're a little bit stiff. And so right before we started, we all kind of took a little stretch break and did some swaying and moving about. And yeah, that really sort of shook out some of the cobwebs, I think. So you can always watch later. If something like that happens to you, we recommend movement, some good company with people you trust, and nature, both during and after this session to help you yourself. So having said all that, you've heard enough from me, so I'd like to introduce this session. We will be listening to a pre-recorded talk by Mark Walsh, who will be speaking about trauma and leadership. And Mark is known as Mr. Embodiment. He's worked in 5 war zones with street kids, the Russian LGBTQ community, with the police, with aid workers, 3 militaries. You ask about it, he's been there and he's done that. And he's also been sober for 14 years, which is no easy task. So he has been traumatized, but he's done a lot of work on that, and now he does okay. And he'd like to share the lessons he's gotten from his experience with you, and enrich your lives too. So with that, I just want to also frame that this is a watch party that we'll be doing, and pre-recorded talk, not a live talk. And so because I don't want to obstruct your view of the shared screen with my cursor, I am logged onto a second device If you can see in the participants tab, Shanti 2, that's my second device. And I'll be using that to track the streaming quality and to monitor the chat. So please feel free to give me your feedback on your viewing experience, either through private message or to the whole community. And I will be happy to adjust the audio and video as necessary because I really want this to be a comfortable experience for you. So that's it for now. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
And trauma. So these are two of my favorite. Okay, so welcome everyone. This course is about the relationship between leadership, and trauma. So these are two of my favorite things, and they interact in ways that aren't obvious. And we're going to see that today. So if you're someone who really wants to be a leader or someone who wants to be a better leader, this may be extremely helpful because there's lots of sort of hidden ways that trauma can sabotage that, get in the way of that, undermine it at various levels of healing and growth. So we'll be looking at all of those. So a little bit of sort of safety stuff. Most of you watching the recording of this, a few people got kind of invited early just so they could have their cameras on and I could actually sort of teach to real humans because there's a kind of limbic loop there. It's really helpful. So most people watching the recording, I would say this. So most of these sessions that we're doing on as part of this series are not for people who are like deep in hardcore trauma that they're really like right in the middle of right now. It's mostly for people who have either got, a little bit of stuff going on or they've kind of healed a lot on their journey and want to keep going. Of course, everyone's welcome. If, however, you find yourself spacing out, freaking out, technical terms, tightening up, not breathing, I recommend moving, standing, walking. We recommend people actually listen to many of the recordings while going for a walk or being in nature or being with friends. All those things will be helpful rather than, as you listen to me, thinking about the worst things that have ever happened to you in your life. I don't recommend that. Okay. Equally, if you're watching recordings, do not binge watch it. It's not Game of Thrones. Actually, Game of Thrones is quite traumatic, isn't it, at times, particularly the ending, which was so bad. But anyway, don't binge watch it because that would just be a bit much. Okay, we really, really recommend that. Anything else on the safety front, Daniela? We normally tell people. I'll just check my list while you're looking at that. Oh, don't get offended. Okay, that's your choice. It's a bad choice. Don't do it. It's a rubbish choice. So there may be jokes. This isn't therapy. This is education, and it's education done with smile and with humor. So bear that in mind. Some people will be better off in one-to-one therapy. I think that's the main things. Daniela, anything I should say that don't from a safety point of view?
No, I think you actually got all the bullet points.
I think I did. And the last one says, and remind people that even that it could be a lot of fun. Yes, learning about trauma itself, of course, is not fun, but learning about trauma and certain stages in the healing journey certainly can be. All right, so today's topic is leadership. First thing, I don't know, anyone listening, live or recorded, when you hear the word leadership, do you go, that's me, I'm a leader? Or do you go, no, I'm not that. I'm only a not whatever, So it's interesting. A lot of people don't identify with this word. And obviously there's many definitions, hundreds of books, in fact, written on what leadership is and isn't, blah, 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 blah. A leader, you could say anyone with followers. You could say anyone who takes action, makes change in the world. So anyone who's responsible for their life as opposed to being a victim. Okay, so this can be, we're getting triggering territory already, aren't we? If we start talking about victims and who isn't a victim. The sacred victim, a modern phenomena. Don't victim blame. So a leader, many, many definitions. I would say in one way, we're all leaders. We're all leaders in our life. Many of us have people who look up to us, who admire us. It might be children, maybe colleagues. It doesn't mean to be a leader to me that you're, a prime minister or in charge of a global NGO or something like that. There could be more modest ways to be leaders. What I point you to there too is that many people, when they hear the word leader, they think that's someone else. Yeah. And this could be as a result of trauma. And we'll see why. We'll look here into sort of how trauma can impact styles of leadership, ability, skill in leadership, and stop some people even going there at all. Trauma-like leadership, many definitions. It's a little bit confusing in a way, because there's the event which gets called trauma and the reaction to the event, which also gets called trauma. Yeah, it's a bit confusing, isn't it? So the traumatic event is anything overwhelming. And the key thing here is that it doesn't have to be something that obviously we might think of traumas like child abuse or being in a car accident or being in a war. It could be anything subjectively overwhelming, anything that's too much, too soon, too young. Yeah. And in a way, we all have that happen to us. So I think of trauma as existing on a scale. So we all have some overwhelming things happen to us, but some of us have a lot more. Yeah, some of us have it a lot more severe. So I also want to honor those people that have been in wars or abused or something like that, while simultaneously saying, just because you haven't doesn't mean you haven't got trauma. In fact, you probably have got at least a little bit. So from anything overwhelming, you can look at this from a nervous system point of view. Sometimes people talk about getting stuck in fight or flight. You've probably heard of the fight-flight response. Give me a wave if you have, people who are live. Yeah, nearly everyone these days. Fight or flight. And you actually all know what that is subjectively. You know what it's like when you get stressed. You know what it's like when you get angry or scared. And that's a normal, actually not just human, like dogs have it. Look at a dog and scared. Look at a dog, it's angry. It's exactly the same as a human. One of my slides in my business training is business people doing in the same positions as dogs when one's scared and one's angry. Yeah, so it's a very natural thing. Of course, that's normal, that happens. But if we're permanently in that state, why might that be a problem? Because there's not always something to fight or be afraid of. So even though that adaptation might be very useful in the moment, it might not be very useful long term. So one of the ways I think of a trauma response, as opposed to the event, is a long-term learning and adaptation to something overwhelming. So it's a way of coping. It's a way of dealing with it. Trauma is a kind of genius. Trauma saves us. Trauma stops us feeling the unmanageable. It stops us. It stops us being overwhelmed, whether that's by numbing or putting us in that mode, fight or flight, whatever it is. This is actually a really, really helpful thing. To go into that mode. Unfortunately, this is sort of good news, bad news joke, right? So bad news, trauma. Good news, we respond. We have this trauma response, which can make it, make us numb out or not feel the pain emotionally or physically. The bad news there again is that can then have consequences elsewhere, which are not so helpful. Yeah. So this framing is quite important. It's essentially a learning framing. We could also look at it in terms of, the nervous system, polyvagal theory. There's another TED talk by Deb Dana, who's a real expert on that. And the interesting thing is that it shows up across the board. It shows up in many, many areas that people might not think of as trauma. People generally think of the most severe symptoms, like who's heard of a flashback? Yeah, when someone's completely dissociated, they think they're somewhere else. Yeah, but even that can exist on a scale. So I'll give you an example. I was in the gym and I was lifting heavy weights, and I somehow released my psoas while doing this. And for about a day or two, I sort of felt like I was in Afghanistan, which is a place I visited, which wasn't very friendly. Yeah, but I wasn't like dissociated. I was just in a slightly dreamlike state for a couple of days. Yeah, or it might be a smell. So there's these quite severe symptoms like flashbacks that have milder versions, or someone having, waking up with nightmares. You think of the traumatized, soldier like my granddad, you kind of wake up with nightmares and not be able to sleep at all, or have to drink themselves to sleep to cope, and that it might not be as severe as that. It might simply be that you don't sleep that well, or you don't feel that rested from sleep. Yeah. Often it might be a hypervigilance. So what has hurt you, you tend to be over defended against in the future. That makes sense, right? So it's hurt us, we're on the lookout for it. Yeah. Whatever that is. Again, it's an adaptation, but could be a maladaptation long term. So let's look at this from it could be food issues, it could be money issues. And this is why we've got so many little talks on this thing, because it shows up in all these different ways. Yeah, and if you think about your nervous system being chronically affected, of course it will show up in different ways. Of course it would, because your nervous system, wherever you go, your embodiment is there. It's part of the picture. It's part of what's happening. So of course you're gonna, it's gonna impact your food and your love life and all the things we've got talks on that you'll see, boundaries and the confusing thing is it sometimes can go in two different directions. Yeah. So you could be, for example, over or under boundaried. What the hell does that mean? I'm speaking therapy language. So over defended, a bit defended, not letting anything in, not letting people in, being a bit aggressive, perhaps. Yeah, we all know someone like that. In fact, there are entire cultures like that. Not saying anything, Russia, where I'm going on Monday. Okay. And there's also under boundaried people and cultures. All right. So, for example, people who are a bit too nice, as Erica would say, is one of our speakers, that it's not really kind. It's just a bit agreeable. They let things go. They go along with everything. And that ends up not being very good for their love life, their food life, their money life, everything else. Yeah. So you can go in different directions. You following me so far? Still breathing? Are you thinking about the worst things that have ever happened to you? Don't do that. Look at me. Okay. What color are my eyes? Beautiful. That's what my mother says. All right. So in the present moment, we're all here looking around the room. Yeah, you know where you are. Okay. Oh, there's something nice. Great. All right. Good. So if from a leadership position, let's think about this. So first of all, worst cases, and then we'll go to sort of minor things. So maybe that someone's been abused or hurt very badly, and they just start thinking themselves in not very positive ways. Yeah. So one way we make meaning of the world when bad things happen is to say, well, I must be bad because bad things have happened. It's not logical exactly, and it's not true, but it's a way of making sense. Yeah. So identifying as that. Like equally, all trauma is about powerlessness. Make sure you check out Paul Linden on this, right? It's his major theme. So all trauma is we gain survivability, we deal with the overwhelm, but what we lose is power. Yeah, so there's a disempowerment with all trauma. This can lead us, in fact, to see all power as bad and abusive. Yeah, this can lead us to think of like money and influence or fame or status or any of those things as bad and abusive, or particular groups like, I was hurt by a man, therefore all men are bad. That generalization, or women, or whatever. If one thinks I'm not worth anything, I'm worthless, I'm bad because bad things have happened to me, it's not a logical thought. It's just something that develops in the embodiment. Why on earth would you be a leader? Right? Why on earth would you do that? It takes a certain confidence to do that. So that can be someone just who wouldn't go near the idea of leadership. Or if there are particular trauma strategies. So one way of thinking about trauma is it's how we keep safe. Our trauma pattern is how we keep safe. Yeah. And this is why it goes in different directions, because there's a few possibilities. One trauma pattern, for example, is to hide. You will see that in the body by what Paul calls smallification. Great made up word. People that you seen that in the body, people kind of, even animals you'll see that have been hit a lot, maybe do that. They kind of shrink. Yeah. Especially we know when someone's confident, like a little kid that's, never had a bad happen to them. They're like, yay, look at me. Yeah. See kids do that. They're big. Yeah. Leadership is making yourself visible. True or false? Would you agree with that? I think like me and Daniela, we did the embodiment conference. We were two of the three leaders at that conference. We made ourselves very visible. And you know what happens when you're visible? Bad things. Good things and bad things. Okay, you will be criticized. You will be attacked. Some people's strategy for dealing with trauma, safety strategy, again, unconscious, partly cultural, blah, 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 is that they want everyone to love them. They try and make everyone love them. Because think about it, that would keep you safe, right? Keep you safe if everyone loves you, you're safe. Yeah. Is that possible if you're a leader? That everyone will love, like, and appreciate you? The answer is no. So I have lots of exercises where I get my students used to being hated. Okay. You will be hated if you're a leader. You will be mocked. You will be ignored. That's terrifying for some people, to be ignored. We have an exercise where someone walks up to you and you say hello and they just turn around and walk away. And some people are like, oh, other people are like, whatever. Yeah. Now, if you see someone with sort of strong self-esteem, I know my wife, for example, she'd be like, fuck them, it's their loss, Okay. Other people would just be devastated by that. So this is something that gets in your system, and some of people's safety strategies are incompatible with being a leader, certainly on any scale, in any way that will be seen, that will be criticized. It's very difficult. It's very difficult to achieve anything, to do anything innovative. I think of leadership as usually an innovation, to change anything in the world. You're always going to meet resistance, being laughed at, being ignored, being criticized. Maybe you've heard the saying, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they hate you, then you win. Yeah. So you have to be able to deal with all those things. Make sense? They have to be bearable things if you're going to get to the win bit at the end, and you might not. Yeah. So let's take risk. Trauma. How can trauma affect people's relationship to risk? Generally, it will mean they don't want to do it. Okay. Or they become a massive control freak. I'm definitely not going to look at Danielle. I promised her I wouldn't make that joke again. So, no, I didn't. So we can make people very controlling of any kind of risk, or just unable to handle risk. Okay, unable to handle risk. Yeah. All leadership is a risk. Think about this. Leadership is a risk, and now safety. Trauma is a sense of the world is unsafe. So how can I take risks? Control enthusiast. I love it. Yeah. So this is where we will go into superpowers later. That trauma can actually give you superpowers for leadership. We'll get to that in a bit. Yeah. From control freak to control enthusiast. Okay. Yeah. Being able to laugh at it. That's a sign of healing. Daniela can laugh at her control freakery instead of just going, no, you have to control the world. It's the only way to be safe. And Mark is bad and wrong. The other way it can sometimes go. Okay. No names mentioned, Mark Walsh. Is actually going towards danger. This is a bit rarer, but you will see it. It's basically like the world's dangerous. So if I run towards the danger, then I know where I am and it makes sense. Yeah. So in this case, you may take undue risks. This is a bit dangerous if you're an entrepreneur, for example. Yeah. Luckily, if you borrow millions of dollars, okay, but have one of you that goes towards danger, one of you goes away for it, it sort of balances out, doesn't it, Daniel? Sort of balances out, and you have lots of arguments about it and need Manal to come and help. All right, you need someone that doesn't have either of those trauma patterns. So great, that's how we got through. You have to be smart with this in a leadership position. So trauma makes us react unduly to things. Trauma is an overreaction. Another way of thinking about trauma, I know this is going to upset some people, but be ready. You're a grown-up. You can handle it. Trauma patterns are your preferred way of manipulating the world. It's how you get what you want. Kitty! Okay, Christina's got a cat. So cats and dogs have very different control strategies, don't they? Okay, so one of them has an avoidant pattern. The other one has a dependent pattern, cats and dogs. So that's my trauma typology. Cat trauma and dog trauma. Who has cat trauma? Who's like, other people keep away, I have to be independent. That's cat trauma. Who has dog trauma? I love you. Do you love me? I need you. Do you need me? Very different type of trauma pattern. Okay. Who are the kitties? All the kitties say meow. Who are the doggies? Say woof. Okay. Some of you are like, I'm the grown-up therapist and I can't believe he's making animal noises. So yes, trauma healing can be fun if we take it seriously. If we take it too seriously, it doesn't help. Trust me. Do not take yourself seriously. Okay. So where was I? So some of our safety patterns may influence the kind of leader we are and may get into the way of as leader and can become superpowers as leaders. Let's go from the sort of bad to the okay to the best. Yeah. So the bad would be, let's say I have a trauma pattern around other people not to trust anyone. Am I going to delegate? The world is unsafe. People can't be trusted. Who resonates with that idea? Other people can't be trusted. Just some of you are like, yes, that's true. Okay. Of course, it's sometimes true. Trauma takes a sometimes and makes it an always. Oh, write that down. That's good. Okay. Or it turns everything into a have to rather than a could. Yeah. Or an always or a never. So if you don't trust people, how easy will it be to delegate as a manager? Not very easily. Equally, if you were naively trusting, that's a less common trauma pattern, but you will find it. Yeah. Naively trusting probably isn't great either, is it? Yeah. Remember the control freak stuff if you're a manager. Similarly, the chaos stuff, yeah, could be a problem. How you deal with criticism. Yeah, if you like getting to a long Facebook argument with everyone that ever doesn't like what you do, it's probably going to, I used to do that. Okay. I don't bother these days. I'm more healed. I don't have to. But that's over boundaried. That's not going to be helpful as a leader. Okay. Or not being able to take feedback, not being able to go, actually, maybe we can do this better. Yeah. I have to be right. I have to be in control the whole time. Equally, being like super sensitive, you know, hearing every piece of feedback. You know, what you learn to do as a leader is ignore most people. It's an interesting paradox because you need listening to be a good leader. You need to get feedback, right? You need to figure out who's my client in my case, you know, what my peers say, take on board feedback. But mostly what you do is you say, oh, thanks for your opinion. Yeah, in brackets, fuck off. Okay, mostly that's what you do. You learn to ignore people's opinions because most of us are a little over concerned. Yeah. So, for example, if I looked on the screen now, some of you probably really like this. Okay, you're going, wow, this is great. Some of you are probably pretty neutral, and some of you probably go, what the hell is this? I'm going to tell all my friends. Like, I can sort of tell from your body language, some of you who are, on cameras. But here's the thing, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, being independent of that unless you're fully enlightened, I mean this literally, unless you're fully enlightened arahat, you will give some of a shit. All right, but you can give a lot less. And for many people, that's part of leadership. And trauma means we give way too much of a shit. Again, technical term, way too much of a shit. Usually about certain things. So I have to be seen as clever or funny or likable or tough. There's another common one. I have to be seen this way. Yeah, I have to be appreciated this way. Not going to happen when you're a leader. Yeah. So those things, particularly from the critical self-esteem stuff through to just like hyperarousal. Who's this better leader? So imagine you're on an aeroplane, right? And there's two captains that come on, Captain A and Captain B. Captain A comes on and says, hello, welcome to the airplane. I hope we're going to fly under my airline. I really hope you're going to be okay with that. And I think we're going to Malaga. And yes, welcome to EasyJet. It's going to be fine, I think. Okay, do you trust that leader? Do you feel relaxed around that leader? No, because your nervous system is going, they're wired, so I should be wired. You know who the leader in the room is normally? It's the calmest one. There's an actor, I forget which one, he always is eating in movies. And the reason he does this is because unconsciously you go, he's in rest and digest, right? It's a sort of status thing. It's like, one of my favorite tricks is when people come to a training, I'm eating a bowl of cereal. That's normally because I forgot to have breakfast. But what I noticed is it looks kind of casual and everyone goes, oh, he's relaxed. Because you don't eat when you're stressed, right? It makes sense. It's a different nervous system. Rest, digest, fight, flight, they're not compatible. Equally, think about like empathy and friendship. Like that's such a part of leadership, is being able to connect with people. Is that fair to say? The emotional intelligence. Who here, when they've had an argument with someone, says, you know what would have really helped is if I was more angry or more anxious during the argument? Not very likely, right? So you get that those states aren't great for conflict. Now, unless someone is like so passive that a little bit of anger could get them sort of moving towards healthy boundaries, right? Going from dorsal to sympathetic before they can get to ventral in polyvagal terms, yeah? If people are in complete shutdown, sometimes they can go through anger and that's helpful, yeah? But generally, you don't want to be in that for any kind of communication, emotional interaction. That's mostly what leadership is. It's also being able to calm other people, to soothe other people, to co-regulate. Yeah. If the leader has the ability to say, hey guys, I know this is stressful. I know right now we're losing money, or I know right now bad things happen, but I think we got this. We can pull together. There's a plan. Okay. I can't promise you it's going to be okay, but I think it will be. Are you with me? So that ability to be, hello, welcome to British Airways. I know we're experiencing some turbulence, but we'll get through this, guys. Don't worry, we've been here before. We've got a great cabin crew to take care of you. John and Jane will be serving drinks later on. I've been doing this for 20 years. My name is John. I know exactly what I'm doing, and your mother would probably find me attractive. Yeah. So they actually teach the British Airways voice because it's a way of conveying calm. Make sense? It's a way of, it's a sort of leadership of the nervous system. Yeah, and there's different ways. I'm not saying you should fake this. Obviously, the best way is to have, if you're a coach or a trainer, like I know a lot of you are, then, do your own healing. That's what will be calming. Not learning something clever to say about the polyvagal system. Okay, you can say almost anything if you've done your own healing and people will be like, okay, I feel better being around you. Yeah. So, do you know that friend that's just nice to be around because they're calming? So that's leadership, right? That's leadership from that position. And it's not just calm. Sometimes it's calm plus a little bit of, sympathetic, like excitement, energizing, that they're not numbed and closed down. Hi, I'm your leader. I'm in trauma shutdown and have no emotions. I'm completely armored, therefore can't inspire or motivate anyone. As opposed to a leader who's like, yeah, I really care about this and passion and life. And I'm not shut down. I've done my healing and life's throwing through me. And like, yeah, get behind this project. It's a really good one. Makes sense? So passion is also part of leadership. It's not just like calming people. Yeah, therapists tend to focus on the old calming people, but the passionate side too, the upregulation, so sort of not being numb, not being armored in trauma terms. Yeah, super, super helpful as a leader. Okay, so also, your trauma pattern may just dictate your style of leadership. Daniela and I have very different styles of leadership. Who's more in control? Daniela. Okay, who's more expressive? Probably me. But we're both good enough at the other stuff. Okay, on a good day, right, Daniela, these days, much better than we used to be. Okay, by the way, I did talk to Daniela beforehand about sharing some of this stuff. We have an agreement around it. So a bit of game between us now. Don't make jokes about stuff until people are ready in their healing. It's like, there was a period when this wasn't a joke, wasn't it, Daniela? These days, it's we can laugh at it, and that's a sign of healing, actually. It's a sign of healing, yeah. So your style is also potentially influenced by your trauma, and that's not bad. There are many ways to lead. You can be that sort of super nice, considerate leader like Andy Kane, who's here now. He was just with the group that I'm training in Brighton. They said, he's so different from you, Mark. He's so much nicer than you. No, but he's got a very different style of leadership to me, and that's okay. We're both good trainers. Yeah, we're both good trainers. So we have styles potentially from our trauma, potentially, personality kind of goes into trauma when it becomes excessive, when it becomes a have to. Everything's a nail because you're a hammer. It warps your perception. Yeah. But it can also just be a style. Then superpowers. This is the good news. So some of the things that exceptional leaders do. And to do a leader, you need some exceptional skills. You can hire some of the others, but you need at least some exceptional skills yourself. You can have teams of some of the others, like me and Danielle, me and Andy. Is you need some superpowers to be a leader. Because otherwise, why would anyone follow you? You need to be able to do something well, right? Or compelling, or innovative, or whatever it is, yeah? So when we heal a trauma pattern, we can keep healing it past the normal into the exceptional. Actually, the truth is you never really get normal when you heal. If you look, I think we've got a whole thing coming up about this whole sessions on this. We've made a whole thing about it, actually. Let's take Alain Stefani or Paul Linden, two of my favorite trauma teachers that are part of this course. Patricia would be another one. They're not normal. They're weird and crazy and freaky in a wonderful way, in an extremely lovable and extremely functional way. Yeah. So they've gone from dysfunctional weird, yeah, unhappy weird, unable to have relationships and contribute to the world weird. That's my definition of health, by the way. You're healthy, you're happy, you're able to have relationships, you're able to do something in the world. Yeah, those three things. I win it. But they didn't really become normal. Paul had a horrific childhood, and he shares about this sometimes. And Alain was a sex worker. She had a pretty harsh life. Yeah. And neither of them is normal, but they're both leaders, and they're both very different. So their weirdness has become their superpower. Yeah. So that they didn't just stop at okay. They kept going. They kept going into the exceptional. Alain is exceptionally alive. Paul is exceptionally funny. Don't tell him that, though. Okay. Paul has got a wicked sense of humor, which is partly a Jewish coping mechanism for trauma and partly a Paul coping mechanism for trauma. It's partly cultural, partly individual. Yeah. Paul we talk about this all the time, me and Paul, so that's not just my opinion. That was how he coped. Equally, Paul's really good at analyzing things. That was how he coped originally with his horrific childhood. Yeah. Yeah. So my pattern that I developed, which is counterphobia, going towards danger, now I've cleaned that up enough that I actually check things with the accountant and I, make plans and don't just kind of go towards every bit of danger. It made me an awesome entrepreneur. That's what made me able to borrow all the money for the embodiment conference. Yeah, everyone, it's really all the control freaks in the team were like really tight about it. And when we broke even, they started crying. I was like, what are you crying about? It's only 2 million quid. Don't worry about it. Yeah. I was like, I was a bit tense about it, but I don't think I lost any sleep. So I wasn't saying it was nothing, but I was able to handle that level of risk. That's a superpower now, right? Equally, like I can speak truth to power. I can say things that other people don't say. That's a superpower. One thing people either love or hate about my training is I fucking say it like it is. Don't mind. Okay, so that ability to be outspoken actually comes from trauma originally. Yeah. And there was a time when I had to always be rude and outspoken. Now I just do it for fun and when it's useful, more or less. Make sense? So as a leader, the things that will make you and this is a head fuck, because I wouldn't say don't be grateful for the traumatic event. That was horrible and probably abusive or whatever. But the skills you gain, yeah, and can keep gaining. So some people are just getting to good enough. They're just trying to function in life. I get it. I've been there. You know, there's a time when I couldn't sleep without drinking myself to sleep. I'm not there anymore. Yeah. The good news is you can keep developing those skills. And as a leader, it will make you exceptional because you will have had to develop skills that other people don't. They just don't have. Okay. Not only will you have to, you'll have sensitivities. Like I've got another friend of mine who's a great leader who's super sensitive, and that came from being abused. And she had to be really sensitive to what was happening in her household or else she'll get hit. Okay. Now she uses that sensitivity to be an awesome therapist. Most kids didn't have to develop that super sensitivity. Make sense? Now, I would still rather no one hit her as a child. It's a horrific thought. Actually, I get upset just thinking about it. But she has a superpower that most people don't now as a leader. She can be a therapist of exceptional ability. Yeah? Cool. So leadership, trauma can completely stop you being a leader. It can affect what kind of leader you are, and that's worth knowing about because you probably get a bit neurotic about certain things. Okay, but the good news, it can also give you these leadership powers, which are something a bit different, something special, and that will make you a leader. So, yeah, I hope that's sort of encouraging and good news as well. We're on time. Thank you so much, those of you who are here. I'm about to record another one for those of you who are here, but those who are watching the recording, do check out the others because leadership shows up. Leadership is one of those topics that just goes across so many areas. So you'll see it in a lot of the other areas too, if you're interested in leadership. If you're a trainer or a coach, we have things for trainers and coaches as well. No doubt will be emailed. And do tell your friends. Do tell your friends about this going on. I'd really appreciate it if you said, hey, if you enjoyed this, tell someone else who might enjoy it. Whew.
Hey, welcome back, everyone. I don't know about you, but that was one of the more interesting talks I think I got to watch in the as one of the watch parties, and yeah, I really loved that idea of like the weird thing about you that helped you survive and get through your trauma could maybe be your superpower and get you from a place of just like being okay and surviving to like being a leader and being exceptional and being able to contribute to the world in some way. Um, so I'm curious, like he mentioned several things, like he mentioned someone who's exceptionally humorous, person who's exceptionally alive, person who's exceptionally sensitive, and I'd be curious if you've, as this you were watching this talk, if something came up for you as like what might be your superpower. Feel free to drop it into the chat if you have an idea of it, and if you don't, that's okay too. Maybe this is like a seed that's sort of been planted for you to start thinking about over the next few days. And either way, any lessons that you've gotten from this talk, definitely I would encourage you to maybe journal about it or write down a few things so that after this week is over, you're able to look back at all the things that you've learned and maybe start applying it to your life. So I've got a few shares here. I know for me, one of my things happens to be one is sensitivity, which he had talked about, and another one for me is my like versatility and adaptability in all situations. I'm sort of like a chameleon who sort of like figures out like what I have to be or what I have to do to like fit in someplace. And so I found that to be a tool that can sometimes be really helpful for allowing me to sort of be a bridge between different groups of people. And I'm seeing folks adding their thoughts into the chat. So we've got someone who's really good at coming up with out of the box ideas. We've got someone else who's has intelligence and drive to accomplish things. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I'm hearing that, like, that came from a place of trauma of maybe not being cared for, maybe being neglected, or maybe only being loved for that intelligence or drive. But maybe now it can be sort of separated from that attachment to worth or value. Yeah, I'm hearing multitasking and being productive is a really big skill. Yeah, I can relate to that one. And then resilient and hopeful. Yeah, hope is a definite superpower. Without hope, it's really difficult to get through the dark times. I know I went through a period of being hopeless, and now I found my hope again, and it's changed everything. So that's really big. Simplicity, honesty, transparently truthful. Yeah, that's so rare in the world that we live in now, that I agree, that definitely makes you special and unique. Creativity, that's a big one. Humor, another person with humor. Calm under intense pressure. Yeah, whoever has that, you got to teach me that one, because that's when I'm struck. That happens to be my kryptonite, so that's an awesome one to have. And yeah, I resemble that. Abnormal. Yeah, keep it weird, people. I think it's awesome. I'm really weird, and it's nice to know that there's other weird people out there, and maybe that maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's a good thing that we can be weird together. So, okay, before we wrap up, I just want to quickly drop the links for you again into the chat for everything that you need, including registering for this talk series on trauma's everyday impact, the information and registration links for like the courses that you can do after the talk series is over if you want to learn more, replays for the all access pass, and for anybody that needs further support, you can reach us at support@embodimentunlimited.com. Agatha is waiting to hear from you. So just quickly, before, I think most of you have gotten sort of the tour of the websites, but so I'll just show you a quick sort of like trailer or video about the courses, and I'll show you the schedule that's coming up tonight and tomorrow, and then we'll close so that you can take a break. Okay. All right. So I've got here a little video about trauma as your superpower, which I think is really like topical since this session was about leadership.
What works when it comes to healing trauma?
What really works for me when it comes to dealing with my own stuff?
I thought there'd be an obvious answer. I thought it would be like, okay, if you have this infection, you take antibiotics.
But it's about the energy that is still present from our past, in our nervous system, in our bodies right now.
If trauma is bio, psycho, social, relational, spiritual, societal, your healing will probably involve those things. The main thing is actually practice rather than theory. You can't sort of theory your way out of it.
Because trauma is not something that goes away.
Everybody has to deal with their trauma in their own unique way.
An online course like this, it's not at all about repairing you. Quite the opposite. Can you deal with your past that it enriches your life today?
What is this idea of superpowers? We can think of trauma patterns as strategies for establishing safety.
Trauma is an event that changes you fundamentally.
Patterns are created to cope with this.
But it doesn't have to be negative all the time.
The superpower is where you keep the adaptation, but you lose the problems associated with it.
All of this journey, all of these chapters, trauma is a superpower. This course is about
tools to create a richer life for yourself.
Going beyond surviving trauma and actually thriving.
In order to get closer to what I really want in life. Can I meet my past in this powerful presence?
Not have to suffer as much as they are. You do not have to.
I invite you to go into this journey. Let me be your fellow traveler with all of us together.
I think this will help.
Yeah, so I'm sure you notice that there's a lot of familiar faces there. A lot of those teachers in the course have also been the teachers for this talk series. So if you like the style that they had in the talk series, then you know it's good because you're going to know what you sort of get from the course as well. And just scroll through the site. There's different packages, as I said, available regardless of whether you're a facilitator or just like an ordinary person hoping to work with your personal trauma. And what I think is like kind of the coolest thing about it is that there's these group sessions that you can get as part of the package where that helps you integrate your learning in community with others who are also doing similar work. Because I find it difficult to learn alone, and so I think having others to do it with is so important. And then the last thing I'll do is just screen share the schedule so that you can see what's coming up next. Give me one moment here. Get back to if I can. There we go. So the next session at 300 UK time will be with Christina. It'll be a live session on how not to give a damn about other people's stinky opinions of you. And I'll be hosting that one. This is definitely a big topic for me because I'm a people pleaser and I always seem to care what everybody thinks of me. So I'm really, really curious and interested to learn what Christina has to say. And we have a bunch of awesome sessions coming up for over the weekend, over the next couple of days on Friday and Saturday. There's a German session coming up with Christina for those of you who speak German or know those who speak German. And then Jane, I've attended some of her circles and sessions, so I can speak to. She does some really great work on trauma in the female pelvis and the menstrual cycle. So definitely look into that if you're someone who for whom that pertains. And then there's also a really interesting talk coming up on rainbow trauma and like what it is to be queer and undergo trauma and that unique experience. And other topics that are kind of applied to all of us, including intimacy and passion, and in this day and age, workaholism. So yeah, take a look at the schedule coming up and, you know, pick and choose the ones that kind of most pertain to you and you most will get something out of, and then sort of like decide, like, okay, here are the ones that I like definitely want to be there for live so I can ask questions to the presenter, and then these things like I don't need to binge watch, so I'm gonna like keep them for like later to watch, maybe a couple weeks from now, you know. So yeah. So that's all I have for today for this session. And I really, really, really encourage you to take some time now to do something nice for yourself. Grab a bite to eat, go take a walk, whatever you need to do before the next session starts with Christina. And I'll close out. And if there's anybody that needs any assistance, I'll keep the room open for just a few minutes. Okay? All right, I'm going to stop the recording.